we need to set up the grid lines which help guide where the structural elements will go. The grid lines should match the building's architecture, like where beams, columns, and other load-bearing elements are. In this step, we'll adjust the grid setting for the floor plan. You can set the number of grids in the X and Y directions and their spacing. There are two options: uniform grid spacing for equal spacing and custom grid spacing for different distances. Since grid spacing in this project isn't uniform in the plan, we'll start with the uniform setting, then switch to custom to adjust any differences. To figure out the number of grids in the X and Y directions, we refer to the floor plan. We have 10 grid lines in the X direction and 8 in the Y direction, so we'll enter those. For the grid spacing, most of the X grids are spaced at 5 meters, and the same goes for Y. We'll input 5 meters now and adjust the differences once later. To match the grid labels with the architectural plan, click on Grid Labels to modify them. The X grids are labeled from right to left, starting with 1. So we'll adjust that. The Y grids are labeled from top to bottom, starting with A. So we'll fix that too. Then we'll hit OK to confirm. To fix the grid spacing, click on Custom Grid Spacing and then Edit Grid Data. We need to adjust the spacing based on the architectural plans. Since the plans usually show the distance between axes, we'll check Display Grid Data as a spacing, so we can input these distances. Remember, the spacing numbers you enter are the distance between the axes in the same row and the row below. For example, the 5 meters you enter is the distance between axis 10 and axis 9. Now, let's update these distances based on the plans. Looking at the architectural drawings, we see that the distance between axis 10 and axis 9 is 1.5 meters. So we'll change that here. The rest of the axes spacings are 5 meters and the distance from axis 2 to axis 1 is 1.5 meters too. Enter this value. Do the same for the Y direction. The distance between axis H and axis G is 4.3 meters. The distance between axis C and axis B is 1.7 meters and the distance between axis B and axis A is 3 meters. If you need to add or remove axes, use the Add or Delete buttons. If you want an axis not to show during modeling, set its visibility to No in the Visible column. Once everything is set, click OK.